Hey, what's going on people? It's SGZ here from the SpartanGameZone, and in this video we'll be talking about the tale of Borderlands 3's Forgotten Planet. Borderlands 3 was the first in the franchise to expand the Borderlands universe beyond Pandora.
What the? Are those vaults?
Yes, Brick, my meaty man sandwich, yes they are. As far as the base game is concerned, certain worlds took precedence over others, coinciding naturally with the story's direction, but there's one place in particular that was begging to be explored further. That was, of course, Athenas, arguably the game's most visually stunning map with the deepest lore, but none of that was tapped into. Today we'll be going over why Athenas is such an interesting planet, the possibility it had for expansion, and how growing its involvement in the story could have made for a more engaging campaign. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you could drop a like, feel free to subscribe if you'd like to, or you could even follow me on Twitter, and don't forget to let me know in the comments what you think of Athenas and whether you would have liked to have seen more, and let's crack into it. Borderlands 3's main story guides you through multiple diverse worlds, the classic bandit-infested desert that is Pandora, the bright futuristic cities of Promethea, you have the desolate ruins of Necrotafeo, dense forests of Eden 6 home to the Jacobs family, and then there's Athenas, whose potential may have been overlooked. We first encounter Athenas in the story mission The Impending Storm, where we learn that the planet hides a vault key fragment and subsequently is under attack by Maliwan forces. Taking the dropship down to the planet, we meet up with Maya for the first time, a siren who is now dedicated to protecting the pacifist monks who inhabit the planet. The story mission takes its name from the sect of monks who have made their home in the high peaks of the mountains, known as the Order of the Impending Storm. It's here where we first encounter the lovable Ava, a teenage girl who's stowed away on a merchant ship after her family's death, which led her to Athenas and to fall under the wing of Maya. Together you take down the Maliwan troops led by the fearsome and handsome Captain Traunt and pick up the vault key fragment before heading back to Sanctuary, never to set foot back in Athenas, at least during the main storyline. But Athenas plays a role beyond that scene briefly during the Impending Storm, playing an integral part in Maya's life, with the planet having close links to sirens. Listening to Typhon de Leon's logs and the echo recordings hidden throughout the planet, we learn Athenas was once ruled by a siren who Typhon won a dance battle against and subsequently spent a few years with, forming a relationship, his words, not mine. After the Siren Queen's death, the Order of the Impending Storm took over operations and quickly began searching for another siren. Disgusted by the willing and quick replacement of the former queen, Typhon promptly left the planet, but the monks' prayers would soon be answered. Listening to echo logs within the wildlife exploitation preserve during Borderlands 2, we discover that the siren they found turned out to be Maya. We learn that as a baby, Maya was left on Athenas in the hands of the Order of the Impending Storm, raised to believe that she was there to defend them and the planet, but in actuality she was unwillingly being used as a weapon to control the populace. When Maya was instructed by Brother Sophus, a member of the Impending Storm, and her handler, to kill so-called criminals, actually just people that owed him money, she instead phase-locks him, thus killing him, before fleeing the planet she had spent all her life on, beginning on a journey to find out more about sirens, which leads her to Pandora. She would then return to Athenas shortly after the events of Borderlands 2 to truly defend the Order, as they had since taken an oath of unharming and were therefore defenseless to threats. For Athenas to have a background that spans 2 Borderlands games and be a very important part of one of the main and most beloved characters' stories, it's surprising that it wasn't mentioned in any Borderlands 3 DLC and had such a small part in the base game's story. Not to mention the interesting factor of pacifist monks and the all-round beautiful scenery. Let's face it, there's a lot of problems with Maya's death, and I don't want to get into that, but it was by far the least impactful of any we'd witnessed before, and why does she turn into a damn book? I know she doesn't, but that's kind of what it felt like. Whole thing threw me off at the time. Angel's death was raw. As a player, you forged a connection between Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 2, moving from betrayal to sacrifice after she tells you to shoot the iridium injectors and end her life. Roland's death was a shock coming right after Angel's. Bloodwing's death was extremely sad, especially after playing Mordecai in Borderlands 1, trying to get his bird back from being captured and experimented on by Handsome Jack, getting Bloodwing weak enough to shoot with a tranq dart only for him to end up dying anyway. To top it all off, Bloodwing can then be found on display in Opportunity, like holy bowly full of cereal. I guess what I'm trying to say is Maya's death could have been redeemed in the aftermath. And I'm not talking about reinstating that cutscene, which would have gone a long way to doing that. Instead, we could have gone back to Athenas, the place that her soul is entwined with, and tied up that connection then and there. Like the mission Space Cowboy in Borderlands 2 in memory of Scooter's death, or even just having a statue like Bloodwing and Roland have in Devil's Razor, these things are essentially funerals, remembrances of beloved characters, but for Maya we got none of that. The Psycho Krieg DLC gave us something and we got a little more later, but the base game stands alone and there's no better place for that to happen than Athenas. As it stands in the lore, Athenas has no protector after Maya's gone, and exploring that would be an interesting direction to go if not just flesh out that part of the story and its surrounding characters. There's one character in particular that could have benefited a lot from that, and that's Ava. She only has pretty much the one side quest in the whole game, Invasion of Privacy, which doesn't help her character much. She comes across as an annoying teenage girl more than anything, and having more side quests involving her on Athenas, more zones to explore, more things to do would have added to her personality, much like it did with the director's cut and the Mysteriously a questline. But we could have had more of that in the base game, which would have smoothed the rough edges surrounding her and what happened to Maya. Regardless, the base game stands separate from everything else, and for all its shortcomings regarding Ava and the handling of Maya's death, Athenas was the perfect place to put that right, but unfortunately all we got was a single story quest and a couple of side quests. The Mysteriously a questline could have gone there, but Athenas was neglected once again, ultimately taking up an incredibly small part of Borderlands 3, despite its engaging backstory setting a great platform for more content. Adding more maps and missions would have left a better impression around the big story events that connect it to the Borderlands timeline and improved the story's overall pace. Granted, Athenas did serve its purpose within the narrative, but there's no doubt it offered a lot more than we got. With every other planet having multiple zones to venture and explore, it's a little disappointing for Athenas to only have the one, especially with how great the little taste we got was. Just venturing to the planet and heading left off spawn, you'll come across this massive door that's just waiting to be knocked down. This was a constant area of possible expansion, a possible map exit that simply never came to fruition. We did have success with the door in Ascension's Bluff turning into the Hemovorous raid boss fight arena, and the possibility for that to happen on Athenas always seemed possible, but just never happened. However, it looks like it was never planned for, as having an area called Athenas on a planet named Athenas doesn't really give you many other places to go. I guess we could have had Athenas too, but either way, I'm hoping this isn't it for this fascinating world, and I'm keen to hear where you think Athenas could go to next. So that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, learned about Athenas and what could have been. If you did, consider dropping a like or subscribing, and I'll catch you in the next one.